All right. Well, good evening, everybody. We're glad you're here. And yeah, it's going to be a good night tonight. There's never a week that goes by that I don't learn some new things, even though I have gone over these elements time and time again. And you read them and you're like, wait a minute, I didn't get that the last time. So it's great because let's face it, this thing is a journey. We'll probably always be learning about our health and always improving our health. And you just keep growing and getting inspired. And that's how you reach optimal health and eventually ultra health. So we're glad you're here. And tonight we're going to be talking about element 15. But before I do, I want to talk a little bit about the transformation system that we're studying right now. So Dr. Anderson, some time ago, I think he wrote this part maybe about 10 years ago. It's 26 different elements, he calls them. So it's all about not only what to eat, but it's also about mindset. It's about sleep patterns. It's about how to deal with stress. So there's lots of pieces to this. And so if you don't have the book, I recommend you get it. I know we don't always ask clients to do that, but it's so valuable. It's $18 on Amazon. It says Life Book. So it's Habits of Health Life Book. And the wonderful thing about it is it's basically a workbook, and it is not meant to go through in 2 weeks. So this is not a novel that you're going to be reading and go, okay, I got it. No problem. And no. This literally the elements themselves are fairly short. It probably would take you 10 to 15 minutes to read, but it's not meant for you just to rush through it. It's meant for you to take those 10, 15 minutes, read the element, write in your book, think about how it applies to you, what kind of changes you can make. If you have questions about it, it might bring up something, lean into your coach, whoever your coach is, and talk to them about it. I had a number of revelations when I read, especially chapter 4. So 4 and 16 can kind of blow your mind. But tonight we're going to talk about chapter 15. Last week we talked a little bit about when to start transition. So there's phase 1, right, which is the 5 and 1. The next phase is phase 2, where we go through transition to maintain that weight loss, which to me is as important, if not more important, because you can lose weight a lot of ways, right? But if you put it right back on, what are you doing all the hard work, right? It's just kind of frustrating. And I think it affects your self-esteem. So if you keep going up and down in your weight, you're like, what's wrong with me? I mean, that's how I felt. So the fact that I could maintain a weight loss for 5 years, that's huge for me, huge for me. So tonight, when we talk about how to eat healthy for life. So last week we talked about when are you ready to start this? We're going to get into the nitty gritty, and we're actually going to divide this particular element into 2 weeks, because I started to go through it and make notes and realize that I really don't think it's good to rush through this. I think it's really important to understand what your life is going to look like, how your eating patterns are going to be once you get into transition. Because that part, when you start to visualize and realize, hey, this is how I'm going to eat, that's huge, because you've already kind of set the mindset to do it, right? So what you're learning in the 5 and 1, that is the foundation. The fact that you're eating 6 times a day, that you've learned how to do a good lean and green meal, that is just going to help you just smoothly go into transition. Okay, does that all make sense? Okay. So, and the hydration too, right? And then we'll be adding in more motion and all that. So to get to a healthy weight using the fuelings combined with your lean and green, okay? So when you do your fuelings and your lean and green, that's basically, guys, boof proof. If you do that, you will lose the weight. I cannot say you're going to lose 2 pounds a week, but I can say that you absolutely are going to lose the weight. It might be 3 pounds one week. It might be nothing the next week. It might be 1 pound the next week, but you're going to lose the weight. You're going to get to your goal, and then you're going to transition. And the cool thing about that is as you go into phase 2, the fuelings can become a convenient and fast way for just your in-between snacks between your 3 meals. They don't have to, but they can. And the great thing about them is they're just so easy, right? So even though I'm eating 3 meals a day now, I still use the fuelings because, like, we're now at church, right? And and so it's like, I'm going to get hungry. I know it. So I throw one of these in my purse, and then I don't feel like on the way home, I've got to stop at Culver's, right? For that ice cream. So, so it really is convenient, or you just plan ahead a little bit more and there's other options for that snack, but you basically continue to eat 6 times a day, right? And so what transition will teach you? Okay, so we're going into phase 2 now. What transition will teach you is how to remove the fuelings and add in whole foods, all right? But here's the important part. If you don't really follow transition for that month that we work with you on that, what you're going to miss is really how to control your weight and how to keep your metabolic switch going to burn fat. Because here's what you have to learn, and this is what we're going to talk about a little bit tonight. If you start in transition, if you start to just add things in, like, okay, I can have 3 meals a day. And I used to eat 3 eggs, 5 pieces of bacon, and 2 pieces of toast for breakfast. If you start doing that, this is what happens. That metabolic switch that you've got going as you're losing the weight right now is going to not be turned on, because what's going to happen is instead, and what I mean by metabolic switch is that you're basically operating the most efficiently way possible by your body burning fat, not carbs. That's how you keep your weight up, okay? Your body keeps that metabolic switch on, so you're burning fat. But if you don't fuel your body in a way to keep that switch going, you will start to put weight on. And that's why transition's so important, okay? So we're going to talk about the specifics of what that is, all right? So remember we talked about set point last week? You guys remember that body set point? Okay, the metabolic switch is kind of that. It keeps your body at that set point where it's burning correctly, burning the fat correctly. Okay, all right. So what does that mean? Now, I said a lot of, buzzwords or whatever. So what does that all mean? So what we're going to do is talk about an overview of what it looks like to be in transition. What does it look like? So, and this is what I want you to remember. When we talk about what you're going to be eating in transition, that does not mean that when you are asked to go to a party, or it's Christmas or Thanksgiving, the pumpkin pie gets pulled out, or it's your birthday and your husband buys you a Baskin and Robbins ice cream cake, whatever it is, that you can't eat it, okay? But what we are going to talk about is what your normal day looks like. Because I guarantee you, just knowing myself, I guarantee it about you too, that before you went on Optavia, your normal day did not look like we're going to talk about tonight. Mine didn't. I didn't eat breakfast. I was starving by 11. I'm on the road. I'm too busy. I grabbed something I shouldn't grab. And then all those carbs turn into sugar, and all of a sudden I've got to have that ice cream. And, what am I going to make for dinner? And so it doesn't look like that anymore. Okay. So we're going to erase that out of your brain. Erase that out of your brain. So what is it going to look like? This will be an interesting exercise. Have you ever measured your dinner plate? I did. So when I realized, this wasn't today, this was some time ago, that using a smaller dinner plate will support everything you're doing. I measured my dinner plate and it was almost 12 inches. It was a huge dinner plate. So I went out and bought 9-inch dinner plates. So when you have a 9-inch dinner plate, the reason that's important, it isn't that it just looks nice and petite and, all that. It will help you to feel like, first of all, you'll feel like you have more food, right? Because you go into transition doesn't mean you start to fill your plate up again. Okay. What you learned in the lean and green, it's going to be translated into transition. That's what you're going to do, but you're going to have 3 lean and greens instead of just 1 a day. All right. So picture a 9-inch dinner plate. What would you say was healthy proportions on that dinner plate? How would you divide it up? I guess that's a better question. How would you divide it up with the types of foods?
Protein, vegetable, and something else.
Great, Maureen.
Sure, I'm not sure on the something else part.
Okay, so in transition, you're going to have, just like Maureen said, you're going to have protein, but your protein, okay, picture your 9-inch plate, all right? Your protein fills 1/4 of that plate. Okay, 1/4. The half of it can be vegetables, or it could be 1/4 vegetables, 1/4 fruit, and 1/4 grain. Right? So can you see a 9-inch plate? If you divide it into 4s, that's how it would look. However, what's recommended is you don't have to do the fruit and the grains every day. You can make half of it vegetables and have either a little fruit with it or have some grain with it. Okay. It doesn't have to be all 4 of the groups. Oh, here he is. All right. Come and say hi.
Hi.
Okay. So that's part of the value of a 9-inch plate. You can really visualize. But here's the thing. When you go out to someone's house to eat, you can do the same thing. I mean, most of the time the plates aren't huge, but if they are, you need to still visualize a 9-inch plate on top of whatever size plate they have. And since you're used to it from home, you kind of have a good sense, right, of what the amounts are. And you're going to take that, and that will be your meal. So can you see how you're just kind of getting into a very easy pattern of knowing what to have? All right. So the importance of this. So say you get your 9-inch plate, and like Maureen said, you've got your vegetables, you've got your protein, you got something else. But what if you say, I'm not going to have any protein because those scalloped potatoes look like way too good to me. And I'm just going to have half of my plate scalloped potatoes, and then maybe I'll throw some fruit in there. Okay. Here's what happens. I'm not telling you not to do it. I'm just telling you what's going to happen if you do it. It's going to throw you out of that metabolic switch thing. It's going to throw you out of any kind of fat burn at all. And it's just going to, I mean, you can do it, but you just have to know what it's going to do to you. Okay?
What happens if it throws us out of that? What do we do if it throws us out of that burn, what we call the burn? What happens then?
Okay. So what it usually takes is 3 or 4 days of really being very tight on what you're eating to get back into that. Okay. So it's not the end of the world. I'm just saying you got to be conscious about what, about what you're doing, right? Okay. All right. So there's another thing you need to know. When you go into transition, you're going to be out there looking at backs of packages if you're going to buy things. And I'm going to give you an example. And this is what you need to know before I give you the example. That serving size. So you ever go to the store and you look on a package and it says, okay, the serving size is 2 cups, right? Or maybe it's a cup. And you think, well, okay, I'm just going to have a serving size of whatever. What you need to know is serving sizes do not equate to portion sizes. So what they say on a package, so if you say, well, I'm going to have a serving, a portion serving size of this particular vegetable, fruit, whatever, and you look on the pack and it says, oh, serving size is 2 cups. You can't go there with that, okay? And I'm going to give you an example of it. I had a client that went into transition. And of course, I check on her every week. How are you doing? And she said, great. And I said, well, tell me what you had for your fruit this week, because she was adding fruit back into her plan. She said, well, she said, I ate a bag of dried blueberries. Bag. I said, whole bag? And she said, yes. And I said, so why the whole bag? She goes, well, she said to me, it said on the back serving size. So she told me how much she ate, and then I looked up what was in that and the calorie count. You have to remember, dried fruit is like concentrated fruit. Okay, it sucked all the water out of it. So basically, what got left? The sugar. So basically, she ate probably like 2 cups of sugar because she ate all those blueberries, dried blueberries. So all I'm saying is kind of just, hey, you need to be conscious that just because it says this is a serving size does not mean that it's a portion size. All right. And that's where Optavia will give you and train you on what that really looks like. Okay. So that poor girl. Anyway. All right, so here's a simple rule for transition. Do not eat refined sugars and flours, white flour, okay? Refined sugars and white flour. So when you're in transition, what that just means is, yeah, you may be looking at the backs of some packages, but you're probably going to be shopping on the outside of the grocery store, around the outside where the Whole Foods are, okay? Good. You probably guys may already know that since okay. So think of it this way. What we're doing is we want to feed your body. All right, let's say you have a car. Let's go back there. If you had a car and it was a high performance car, what kind of fuel would you put in it?
The best.
Super. You'd put high octane, right?
Yeah.
You're going to put high octane because that car will operate better on high octane versus low. It's the same thing with your body. You want to put into it high octane. What that means is really nutritionally dense foods that are going to fuel your body correctly. Okay. You have to always be kind of thinking in that direction. So if you have the book, look on page 293 to 294. On there, is the list of fruits and vegetables that are high, medium, and low glycemic index. Okay. So those of you that don't have the book, don't worry. If you get the book, or you can actually look it up online too. But the reason to know that that's there is when you're in transition, just like you are now, you're going to be paying attention to the glycemic index of both fruits and vegetables. And let me give you a great example of that. Before Optavia, I did years and years ago Weight Watchers, and fruit was like, you could eat as much fruit as you wanted to.
Mm.
And it was not uncommon. I thought, well, this is great. Sit down, watch TV. I want to eat some fruit. So I'd have 3 or 4 oranges. Now, if you, I know, Maureen. Anyway, crazy, right? You think it's crazy, but in my head, I thought, egg, fruit, it's fruit. And I'm not, what's interesting is even now with some of my clients, they still have the mentality that if it's a healthy food, nuts, fruit, even vegetables, meat, that because it's considered healthy, you can eat as much as you want.
Mm.
Well, you can't. It's got to be portion control. But the thing we never really were taught was glycemic index on foods. And that applies to vegetables and fruits. So in transition, it's wonderful. You get to have a couple of pieces of fruit a day. So you're getting the health benefits of fruit, but they want you to be watching the glycemic index. So most likely, if Maureen starts eating fruit, I would recommend to her, if she says to me, I love oranges, I love them, I'll say, great. I said, why don't you try to have oranges maybe once a day? I mean, once a week, maybe twice a week max, and make it only 1 orange. Don't have 2. And then try to choose your other fruit with a lower glycemic index. And what you're doing is you're creating a habit of eating fruits that are going to support your healthy weight and support your blood sugar levels too. Okay, it's just overall good health. So in the book, you can look it up later, what those are. Okay, let's talk about protein. Well, how's my protein going to change? Okay, just like we have the picture of the 9-inch plate, right? And we picture it cut in 4 pieces, right? If you think about the kind of the size of the piece of meat you should be eating, and this is good again, if you go out to eat or at someone else's house, think of the size of a deck of cards.
Hmm.
So when you're going to eat, think of your piece of meat as the size of a deck of cards, because really we don't need more than that. And that is a healthy portion. It's going to give you everything you need, and it's not going to push you into a non-fat burn. All right. So a deck of cards is what you want to be thinking for a visual on that. And here's the interesting thing too, is you want to try to have a selection of meats that are not too high in fats. So I know some of you probably are aware that you shouldn't be really eating red meat for every single meal. It's just not good because of the fat content. But here's an interesting thing to know. If you eat fish just once a week, you will reduce your risk of a fatal heart attack by 40%.
Mhm.
That's a lot, 40%. So because it's a low fat, very good protein for you. And does it, like some fish have omega-3s, which is good. It's just good for your heart. Okay. So don't forget, we're not only going for, we want you to look great, but we really want you to be healthy too. Okay. So that's something else to keep in mind. And a lot of you have asked me about this. You'll say, what do you mean I can't have beans? Well, in transition, you get legumes back. So do we have any fans of legumes? I like them. Like 'em. They are really good for you. Okay, I just want you to know they're really good for you. If you could make one meal legumes, one of your meals a week, there's a lot of health benefits to this. But this is an interesting thing. The family of legumes includes soybeans. Did you guys know that? Okay. Soybeans are super for high protein. They have twice the protein that other legumes have. So it's substantial, right? However, soybean oil is not good for you. And the reason soybean oil is not good for you is it's got omega-6, which is a highly inflammatory oil for your body. And you have to remember, we're trying to go for an anti-inflammatory body, right? The sugars, the white flours they cause inflammation. What we try to do is reduce any inflammation in your body so that you are as healthy as possible and you're feeling good, right? So the thing with soybean oil, you might say, well, Nancy, what's the big deal? I don't have soybean oil in my kitchen. I don't use that. But have you looked on your salad dressing label? Because they very often use soybean oil in salad dressings. So I just want to give you guys a heads up that when you so even if you have a clear salad dressing, which is kind of rule of thumb for us, right? We try to do a vinaigrette or some kind of clear salad dressing. Please look on the back of the bottle for soybean oil. And if it has that, I recommend not using it because again, we want your body not to have any kind of inflammation, right? Okay. You also will incorporate. Can you guys hear that music? Okay, good, good, good. They're starting to rock out at church. All right. Nuts and dairy. I mean, so many people are like, nuts, I love them. I love nuts. Dairy and nuts are great. They're a great source of protein and for fat, and you will get those in transition too, right? But this is what you need to know about, like, for example, cheeses, all right? To me, a portion size of cheese, we were talking about this earlier, portion size of cheese might be, I would like to have some crackers with, like that much cheese and enjoy that, right? The size of 2 AA batteries would be a portion of cheese. So you know what 2, right? You know what that is. So it's like that size, okay? So when they talk about adding in dairy, cheeses, extra cheeses, and things like that, you want to keep that in mind, what a portion size is. It's fairly small amount. The thing with dairy and nuts is they're a great source of protein, but they're also super high in fat and in calories. Okay, so have you ever had the situation where you had a bowl of nuts on the counter? And maybe by the next day, that bowl of nuts is gone. Because, right, every time you walk by those nuts, you thought, well, I'm just going to take good care of my health and I'm going to have a couple of those nuts. I'm going to feel good, right? Yeah, what you've done is, again, you've thrown the balance of the way you're supposed to be eating kind of out the door, thinking, that you're doing a good thing because you're being healthy. Okay. All right. Grains. How about grains? So you want to stay with whole wheat or whole grains. You want to stay away from things like white rice. You would want to stay away from white potatoes. You better off with sweet potatoes, higher fiber count on that. Um, but here's the thing. You ever go to a steakhouse and they bring you a potato, even a sweet potato, and it's this big? It takes up half your plate. So I'm going to give you another visual. Tennis ball. The size of the grain on your plate should be the size of a tennis ball, which is about what, right? Like that, right? Okay. So you got to think that. So you go out to eat, right? And you go, oh my gosh, look at, what this food am I going to do? I want to come on, I really want to eat healthy. You just have to remember a deck of cards for your protein, tennis ball for your grains, right? You just have this visual in your mind, and then it's not hard. You don't have to like wonder. And then you basically get that to-go box and put the rest in there, and you got a meal for tomorrow too, right?
Yeah, we do that right away. We
Yeah.
get that to-go box right away. We cut our meat in half, and we get our portions, and we put that all in the to-go box. We shut the lid on that, we set it aside, and we eat what's on our plate. Just takes away from the nibbling. Anybody a nibbler? The nibbling temptation. Even if I nibble off Nancy's plate. I mean, anyway, because that can happen. It can happen. So just put that and just set it aside and understand in your mind, I'm going to have that later. So
yeah, it's really easy to do that. But I just want you to know, sometimes you get caught. And Clark and I got caught big time this last Sunday. We shared this with poor Marie last night. But we were invited. We're leaving for Wisconsin in a couple of weeks, and so a lot of people are inviting us for dinner, and it's very generous and sweet of them. And we went to somebody's house, and it was a huge challenge for us and what we realized, I mean, it was things like, the only salad on the table was a corn salad made with mayonnaise. All right. Now, really, how do you make sense of that? We were given these bratwursts that were like loaded with fat, okay, with a roll. I know, potato chips was the other part of the meal, and then these lemon bars that were, anyway, you probably don't need to know all the gory details, but just to say, we basically used, okay, so how did we deal with that? Basically, what we did was we were super careful about portion control. We just ate a little bit, a very little bit. There wasn't anything else we can do. So just to give you a word of encouragement, we are not perfect. We get caught in these things too. And you just make the best of it, and you just move on from there. But I have to tell you something. When you eat that way, you feel awful.
you felt very, very terrible.
I felt sick, and I was really careful what I ate. I came home and I said, Clark, I got to go to bed. I feel sick. Because think about it. That's how we used to always eat.
The bratwurst. Oh, that's so full of fat. Oh my God.
Oh my gosh. I think all we ate, Maureen, was fat and carbs. I mean, that's about all we.
Yeah.
But we were 3 hours away. Start again.
Yeah, and that's what we did. We just
3
said,
hours away. I'll be honest. I'm going to just totally honest. And I was careful. I gained 2.5 pounds from that meal.
Oh,
And I ate
that's
portion.
amazing.
I ate portion control. I mean, I 2.5 pounds. And that was Sunday, and I got it off by
Tuesday, wasn't it?
yesterday, but yeah, Tuesday morning. Took me 2.5 days to get it back down to where.
Oh,
So here's the thing, it's going to happen to you, but you don't make a habit of that. And that's what I'm talking about. When you go through transition, What we're doing is we're showing you how to eat well. Okay, so think of how you're eating right now, the 5 and 1. So when you go through transition, you might you'll probably have breakfast first. Okay, so you'll not eat the bar. Instead, we'll show you what to have for breakfast. And again, it's going to be good, healthy food that it's not hard.
No,
It's not difficult at all, but you'll know the right fat content, you'll know the right
portion.
portions, glycemic index, so that what happens is it's like cooking your favorite recipe. If you cook your favorite recipe a lot of times, you almost can do it from memory, right? You're like, oh yeah, it's a cup of this, it's a cup of 2 cups of this. I can just, you put it together, you throw it in the oven, right? It's the same thing. You learn, oh yeah, breakfast looks like this. Breakfast looks like 3/4 of a cup of this. So I know how much that is in a bowl. I'm going to put some milk on it. That's my, that's my breakfast. You just get used to that's what you're going to do. Okay. And then, 3 hours later, you have a little snack. Either you have a fueling if that's what you want, or maybe you're going to have a half an apple with a little bit of peanut butter. You're going to learn what to have. So you're still going to be feeding your body, but that's going to be kind of your norm. It's not going to be like your norm won't look like what we ate Sunday.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think it's for me, it was a real mental thing to understand. It says, well, even if I'm eating again in 3 hours, you just have that understanding. In 3 hours, I'm going to fuel my body one more time. And therefore you understand that even though your body might feel weird or whatever, that you understand that your body is going to be taken care of and you have a choice over that. And in 3 more hours, there's going to be a solution. So that's really, really important to have the mindset that first meal is not like, oh my gosh, what did I miss? No, it's not, it's a really mental, emotional thing sometimes. No, I'm going to eat again in 3 more hours. I'm not, 3 more hours, I'm going to have some nutritional impact on my body. So,
Yeah. So the last thing is fats. And I think fats can be easily misused because it's so easy to, right, just like we talked about with the nuts, taking too many nuts, or, the extra olive oil, or, your avocado. Yeah, avocado is so good for you. I think they'll have 2, no, 2. So portion size. But on page 307 in the book, it talks about the different good fats. And I just want to read you something really quick from what he wrote. He said, why does fat so easily lead to weight gain and disease? Okay, now fat's really good for you. Okay, I just want you to know that. Be clear. You need fat. You need fat to feel like you're satisfied in what you're eating. You need fat in order to absorb certain vitamins and minerals, right? Fat does a lot of great things in your body. Too much fat doesn't. Okay, so I want you to really hear that, because if you tell somebody I'm on a low fat diet, they're going to be like, oh no, eat as much fat as you want. You don't want to eat as much fat as you want. You want to have the right amount of fat to fuel your body correctly. So what he says is a gram of fat contains 9 calories, which is more than double the calories in a gram of protein or carbohydrates. So you can see why controlling your fat content is important, right? You want to have enough, but you don't want to have too much. Okay. Combined with too many high glycemic processed carbohydrates, our bodies. Okay. So when you're taking in the fats and you're taking in too much fat, okay, and then you combine it with eating high glycemic processed foods, which I guarantee you we all did. Okay. We all did that. Our bodies store fat calories at an accelerated rate. So can you see that combination? Too much fat, maybe even the wrong fats, combined with these processed carbohydrates, basically what it does. And it's why there's so many people in the US, including us, before that, struggle with their weight. Is because if you look at the Western diet, it is loaded with refined processed carbs and high fat. So that's why we need to be really conscious about this. So it says calorie for calorie, and this is really good to know. Calorie for calorie, fat is much less effective than protein or complex carbohydrates at satisfying your appetite and giving you a sense of fullness. So you need the fat for some feeling satisfied, some of it. But you have to remember that protein and carbohydrates actually will work even better for that. Okay, and that's why you want the right portions of that also. The right portions of that. So some of the top sources for healthy fats, what do you think they are?
Healthy fat. Olive oil.
That's a great one. So olive oil is a great one.
Avocados,
Avocados, that's a great one.
Almonds.
What is it?
Almonds.
Almonds, yep.
Fish, especially salmon.
Yep, especially salmon. Flaxseed products. Really good for fat. Right, and soybeans, believe it or not. So, all right, well, that kind of gives you an idea of the sizes, the portions for the types of foods you're going to be eating. The great thing is you really do get back everything. I mean, when you go through transition, you know, your fruits come back, your grains come back. You just learn how to put the right ones in to have the healthiest, optimal health possible. That's what we're going for, is optimal health. So, Belinda, I see your hand up. Is that you? Nope. Okay. All right. There she is. All right. So any questions, comments? Does it give you a sense of how it's going to look?
Yep.
Yeah. And that just becomes kind of second nature. That's what happens. And that's why you don't, yeah, go ahead, Marie.
I just had a question because I think
Mhm.
I remember reading in the guidebook when you transition that you can have any fruit for that transition period. So should they be mindful of that glycemic index at that point or not?
So that's why going through transition, it's very important to be in touch with your coach throughout that whole thing, because nothing is off limits, right? So if you look at the list of fruits, it lists everything. It doesn't say you cannot have watermelon. But if you look at where watermelon falls on the glycemic index, it's very high. So this is why, like, for example, if Sue was in transition and she said, okay, this week I add fruit back in, and she adds in watermelon, 2 portions of watermelon every day. And she hops on the scale at the end of the week and she's gained 2 pounds. And she says, what? I ate the fruit like it said, and I, I didn't eat too much. And I'll be like, okay, so tell me the fruit you ate. Oh, I ate watermelon every day. Okay, let's take a look at where that falls on the glyc. So basically, it's why transition. It's really kind of a give and take thing, in that every week we're looking at what you're eating, how is it affecting your weight, so you understand that. And so now what happens is, going forward, Sue's going to say, I love watermelon. I'm going to have watermelon once a week, but I'm going to now put strawberries and apples, which are a low glycemic index, as maybe my fruit for most of the days. Does that make sense, Marie? Okay. Yeah. Yeah. All right. Any other questions? I bet you just all can't wait to go into transition.
I think
Right?
I think I have another 3 months to go.
That's okay. That's okay. You're doing marvelous.
Yep.
You're doing great. Maureen's down 26 pounds, guys.
Way to go.
No,
That's
Tough,
awesome.
29.
How much?
Ooh,
29,
it's gone up, right?
29 pounds. That's even better.
Yeah, don't shortchange her.
I'm not. I'm trying. I should. Last week. So
Look at that.
that is awesome. Maureen's going to a wedding at the end of May, and people are going to be like, "Whoa, Maureen, you looking good, good girl. You looking good."
I think for some people who have seen me recently, they'll say that. But if they haven't seen me in several years, I don't think they'll notice a difference. Because I used to be thinner.
That's okay. And the important thing is that you feel better.
Yeah.
That you feel better about not only how you look, but how you feel. There is
it's
such a difference.
I was actually trying to think of when the last time was that I was this weight. And I went back to 2008 and I was
Wow.
not even there then.
Wow.
Wow.
So
That
Wow.
that's
so I guess it was
huge.
even before that, you know.
Wow.
That is so great.
Congratulations.
Congratulations. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love it. That's a great success story so
Yeah.
far.
Excellent.
It's awesome. All right, guys. So we want you all to have a great week, and I'll be talking to a lot of you tomorrow. So, all right.
Okay, bye.
Peace out.
Take care. Peace out. Bye.